Let's take you live now to Queen's Park, where the NDP and community advocates are marking Overdose Awareness Day and calling on the province to implement an overdose strategy to address the crisis. Let's listen in.
I served a local church that delivered meals to encampments and safe consumption sites. We partnered with PASAN to distribute harm reduction supplies. This work is not abstract for me. I have lost friends, 2 family members to addiction and to the homeless crisis. And now, as an MPP, I carry them with me every single day. Parkdale, where I serve as MPP, is a community with a long history of welcoming people, newcomers, people seeking affordable housing, those living with addictions. The neighbors there have built a strong network of mutual aid. Settlement services, co-ops, supportive housing, recreation centers, harm reduction programs that uphold the dignity and the safety of everyone who calls our community home. But over the past few years, the weight of the overdose crisis has grown unbearable. Resources that were already stretched thin, and then this spring, the Ford government shut down 4 supervised consumption sites across Toronto, and the results have been devastating and entirely predictable. Overdoses are up nearly 300% at the drop-in centers. Local churches have reported up to 6 overdoses a week on their steps. Custodians, librarians, neighbors are suddenly thrust into the role of first responders. It's only when we stop seeing people as fully human that we allow for this level of suffering to continue. In Parkdale, our safe consumption site is like an overwhelmed lifeboat. From April to July, visits rose by more than 500 compared to last year, with nearly 200 first-time visitors. Overdoses in the surrounding community have more than doubled, and just a few weeks ago, somebody died. And I understand that residents, desperate for solutions, are frustrated. But we have to be clear. The harm reduction organizations are not to blame. They are holding the line. They are responding with compassion and courage to a crisis created by this government's failure to provide housing, treatment, adequate harm reduction supports, and the choices that they make have mattered. Choices to shut down life-saving services. Choices to pass Bills 3, 6, and 10, which recriminalize homelessness and addiction, driving our people further into the shadows. Here is what the evidence tells us. Compassion works. Heart hubs may help some people, but they are only one piece of the solution. They cannot replace the comprehensive network of supervised consumption sites, harm reduction programs, supportive housing that the communities like mine are desperate for. This crisis will end when we remember the humanity of every person that we've lost and every neighbor that we are trying to save, because every life is worth saving. Thank you. I'd like to invite my colleague, MPP Wong Tam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Kristen Wong Tam. I'm the member of Provincial Parliament for Toronto Centre. What we've seen is, since the closure of the supervised consumption sites, many of my community members are telling me, and I have personally witnessed this, is that community safety has gotten worse and not better. Mr. Ford promised to close some of those sites within 200 meters of schools and daycares, but the only thing that his closures have done is to move vulnerable people who use drugs outside in front of schools and daycares. Mr. Ford said that sites were making children and families unsafe, but all his closures did was to force people with addictions outside of their homes with nowhere to go and now using drugs in public and broad daylight. Since Ford's closures, EMS calls across the riding of Toronto Centre and right across the City of Toronto have increased because more people are overdosing. I know that my constituents want a police officer when they are feeling threatened. I know that my constituents want an ambulance to get to them as quickly as possible if they or a loved one is experiencing a heart attack. And now they have to compete with the extra demands that our first responders, our emergency responders, have to, because people who were medically supervised and had their overdoses reversed or prevented are now in life-threatening crises. Mr. Ford falsely pitted overdose prevention sites and heart hubs as an either-or situation. And I need to be very clear here. He has delivered neither. Heart hubs will have some new supports, but those supports should have always been wrapped around consumption sites in the first place. That's what experts told him. That's the advice he ignored. Mr. Ford lied when he promised Ontarians that his plan would get people off of drugs, bluntly put. Mr. Ford is driving my community to look out more than ever for those overdoses. Mr. Ford is forcing everyone in our community to constantly worry.
We are just listening to members of the NDP at Queen's Park and also community advocates who are marking Overdose Awareness Day and calling on the province to implement an overdose strategy to address the crisis.